One junior in particular you might well know, Great Bear held it, 2013. It was Chris Taylor that brought it to my attention and said, there's a great property in California, but you're going to have a little bit of a opposition on the environmental side, and the vendor is an unusual guy. It's going to take a while. It did. It took me a year to get the license, but we got the license now. We've got the license and we've got the right to drill, and we'll be the first person to have drilled since the mid 90s.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And as we continue on in the precious metals rally of 2020, with gold now over $1,800, which is certainly exciting news for anyone who's invested in gold, gold mining, or exploration companies. And joining me today is Steve Swatton of K2 Gold, who actually just got some great news that is going to, although I'll save it and let Steve describe it. Steve, great to have you in here today. And how is everything going with you?
Yeah, great. Thanks very much, Chris. Yeah, the news that we have is we've finally got a drill permit to drill the Mojave gold project that we have in California. This is a project which has been around since early 80s. It was discovered by Mobil, and it was drilled by Newmont and BHP. It's a project that is pretty well known, and it's pretty well reviewed by several companies. But trying to unlock California has its challenges, and we've actually managed to unlock this in the last few days. We've been talking to the BLM, the Bureau of Lands Management, now for must be 6 months. And we've got the right to drill 4 sites, 16 holes. And on the screen that you can see at the moment is Mojave project's close to Lone Pine, which is a small town of 2,000 people. And it's kind of midway between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. It's semi-desert. The local town is really a small place on the way to somewhere else with a few restaurants and gas stations, but the local population that we've encountered are quite supportive of what we're trying to do. They've heard it before, and we have to convince them that we're the right group that can look after their needs as well as those of anybody who would be interested, any stakeholder in this project. But what we're looking at is an epithermal gold. It's been drilled in the past. 35 holes have been put into it by Newmont and BHP. So that's about 5,700 meters, which isn't a lot. And it's over 3 kilometers by 2 kilometers. The geology and mineralization itself is at surface. And it's fairly, it's fairly simple type of geology. Nothing really unusual about that. What we've done is we've done a soil survey, which has extended the mineralization maybe another kilometer. And what we're looking to do is systematic drilling, which will get us to the stage where we can make a decision as to whether this is, the map that you see on the screen right now, we're drilling the Dragonfly and Newmont to the right-hand side of the screen. And this is that L shape that you're pointing at there, Chris, is the gold-rich side of the property. And there is actually an old BHP road that runs through the east zone up through Dragonfly. And in the next program subsequent to this one, we're hoping to open up that road subject to the BLM's approval. But interestingly, whilst we got that map on the screen, the western side of it seems to be a bit more base metal rich. And in an old report from BHP, on the left-hand side, you can see that big circle, Owens. It's hypothesized that might actually be a porphyry copper. So this may well be a whole mineralized system which is chopped on its side. We're not sure. We're in the early days. All we do know is that on the right-hand side, on the eastern side, we see intersections of maybe 100 meters of a gram type material, which is well within economic grade for this part of the world. We got high-grade gold. One particular trench sample is 42 meters of 4 grams, which has never been followed up with a drill hole or anywhere close to it. So we think that this area does have potential. It's nice in that it has some justification what we're trying to do with the majors being in there. Now, let me just maybe talk a little bit about why they're not there now. Newmont were in there in the early 80s. It was still called a wilderness study area. And in a wilderness study area, you're not allowed to mine. So they were doing exploration basically for the hell of it, hoping that it might get taken out of the wilderness study area. In 94, it was taken out by the Democratic government. In fact, Dianne Feinstein was in the government at the time. And when it was taken out of the wilderness study area, BHP picked it up. They drilled themselves 10 holes, all of them ore grade intersections they had from surface. And then BHP, and I joined BHP shortly after that time, they pulled out of the property. And the reason they pulled out was because they were not interested in being in the gold space anymore. BHP had grown to the size that they want to basically a base metal miner. So they pulled out, and then there was a legal dispute. Fast forward a few years, then you had the financial crisis, had a couple of small juniors in there, and one junior in particular you might well know, Great Bear held it, 2013. It was Chris Taylor that brought it to my attention and said, there's a great property in California, but you're going to have a little bit of a opposition on the environmental side, and the vendor is an unusual guy. It's going to take a while. It did. It took me a year to get the license, but we got the license now. We've got the license and we've got the right to drill, and we'll be the first person to have drilled since the mid 90s. So that's it in a nutshell. Sorry, I couldn't be a bit shorter, but that's basically it.
No, it's fascinating. And that's one of the things I love about the different projects. Just there's so many different ways that people find different projects they look at. And Stephen, it seems like one of the key things with what you're doing has been, probably going forward, is going to be how things go with California. I know that you were even mentioning before we hit record about meeting the local mayor and developing a relationship, and you could just touch on that a bit more. I think that's something people would love to know more about.
Yeah, I must admit that, I've been going backwards and forwards for over a year now, and I haven't met the local, what we'd call here the MLA, the local mayor, county supervisor. And he's been very straightforward with me. Look, he says, this project has had a lot of owners in the past, and there will be opposition. But he said, look, I'm a pragmatic guy. I'll look at it from every angle, and I'll give you the time of day. But he's himself, he's gone on record with the Sierra Club, and in last month's magazine, June 2020, he's gone on record as saying that the local community needs more diversity. He has the second largest county in California with the second least amount of population, and 1.7% of the land is private. He has no tax revenue base other than tourism to speak of. Right. Tourism right now, unfortunately, during this coronavirus situation is somewhat testing for him, because he has to balance the books, and it's going to be extremely challenging. So he's now looking with open ears and open eyes at what we're trying to do, because it may well answer the problem he has with trying to diversify the local economy. Now, this man, Matt Kingsley, is ex-Rio Tinto himself, so he understands the mining business, but he's also a politician. He listens to the people, and we have to present the case to not only him, but the environmental opposition groups, and also the local Chamber of Commerce, who are very supportive of what we're trying to do. So he's trying to balance everybody there, trying to please it. And it's difficult because this part of California is the playground for LA and San Francisco.
Yep. Well, that's why, again, as I've been talking to different mining and exploring companies for years, and different analysts, and it often comes back to who's running it. Can people, and especially if you have a desire to say, all right, how can we form a partnership where everybody benefits? Usually you can massage your way through tricky situations like that. And Stephen, I was wondering if you could actually just mention a little about your background and how you actually came out of retirement specifically for this project. So it wasn't, there were some things that attracted you here.
Yeah, long story short, you're right in what your preamble there. Working for BHP, as I did for many, many years in my life, we were always very conscious of the impact that any project that we were going to do to the local environment. Now, I was based in Singapore, and I went to all four corners of the earth looking at projects, whether it be in the DRC, whether Argentina, wherever. Every place has the same concerns from the local people. You know, what benefits are there to us? How is it going to contribute? What damage are you going to do? Are you going to pollute the waters or whatever it is? They're the same. It doesn't matter if it's 2,000 or 200,000 people. They all have the same concerns. So I'm aware of that from the background that I've had. And yes, I wouldn't say I was in total retirement, but I came back because one of my my friends and colleagues in the past was John Robbins, and you're probably aware of John from you know, many of the Discovery Group companies. The Great Bear being probably the poster child of the junior market at the moment. Now, John and I go back probably 25 years now, and we worked together on, I was at BHP, and we took a diamond deal that he had at the time. And although it didn't work out, we realized that we could do business, and we were very upfront with each other. And he said to me, would you like to come back and have a look at something? Well, it was the Yukon property that I came back for, but it wasn't quite working for us. And yeah, I won't go into that. The geology is great, but the Yukon is a tough place to work, very tough, you know, in terms of climate, in terms of knowing the First Nation idiosyncrasies of working wherever you are. And we had this opportunity because Chris Taylor brought it to us from, he said, look, I've seen this property. And in those days, I couldn't raise 2 halfpennies. But he said, it's a great property. I went down and had a look at it. John then came down and took a look at it and went, wow. And I think he's actually quoted it as a little embarrassing quote about the best thing that I've ever seen. But it seems to have resonated with people. And like, I'll take it, you know, if I'm holding the company. So we've run with it. And look, it's on the eastern side where we're looking at, it's an unusual asset. Everything that we touch seems to have some gold above the minimum threshold of analyses, which is kind of unusual. Now, the stuff that is actually economic is focused in particular areas, but there's a lot of gold in the area. And look, if we've also got some base metals as well, we even have silver, and I know there's certain people like the silver.
Oh,
We have silver on the western
he's dangling
side.
the bait there. Come on, man.
Yeah. So yeah, we have silver, lead, zinc on the western side, with maybe a porphyry copper. On the eastern side, we have gold. So we have all the elements, but we're concentrating on the gold for now because that's what people want to hear, right? So, but you know, it could be an interest. It could be a company making district size property that we acquired here.
Yeah, and I like what you just mentioned, where whatever it is, I think there's something to when we're focused on our core strength and say, this is what we stand for, this is what we're doing. So that I like to hear that. Before we wrap up, I know you mentioned you're fully funded through 2020, and just any last thoughts as investors are thinking of whether it's the right fit for them? Sounds like, you know, you have the negotiations with California, which you talked about, and then to a large degree now you're going to go out and you're going to start drilling. But anything, what it looks like if things go great, and any risks that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so very interesting. And I'll go back to my BHP days, right? We used to look at all different countries and everything else and try and work out, can we work in this country? Can we work in that country or local area? But the thing we realized is it's not a country, it's the local area that matters within that country. And what we have here in California is, like, the word California, you think of beaches and LA and all of that. But actually this part of California is very hardworking people working in regular jobs, doing, you know, regular. So that's this part of California. To actually unlock it is not maybe as tough as you think it might be, but there is opposition to it from people moving in. I think what we're doing is resonating with some of the local people. And I think the advantage for us is because we're part of the Discovery Group, and I'm sure you've interviewed a bunch of others in there, we have the financial wherewithal and resources to be able to keep supporting this project if we need to. But going back to the BHP, one of my senior guys said to me, I don't care where you're working. I need to know that the geology is right and you've got the potential for a very large deposit. And that's what we were always in BHP. It had to be mega huge, right? It had to be 5 million ounces in gold or whatever. And you're like, wow, where am I going to find? This is why we're in the DRC. This part of the world has the potential to be several million ounces. Now, I'm not saying that we have it, but it has the potential for that. And that's what's important. It's not a small asset that we're looking at. It's the big picture that we're trying to. The unlocking is, can we get through all the regulations? Can we appease everybody? Is everybody going to be happy with what we're doing? That is the unlocking. It's not the geology.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Stephen, because in the end, you know, if you already found it, then the stock would be higher, but just really laying out the investment case and the risk in a clear way so that people can, once you know it's the right match for it, can find it. And just in wrapping up, can you let folks know if they would like to get some more information, keep an eye on what you guys are doing, how they can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Go on the website, go on any of our news releases, everything at the bottom there, www.K2.com, K2Gold.com, and speak to either myself, Dustin, or Alex over there. Alex Heath is the guy that's on the bottom of that presentation, but we have a small team that we're literally on the opposite office. You know, they're in the office next to me. Speak to any of us, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Well, Stephen, I sure appreciate that. Folks, all that information is going to be in the description field below, and go check out, so that way at least you can be aware of what Stephen and K2 are doing. Stephen, thanks so much for joining me. It's going to be exciting to follow along, and can't wait to see how it all turns out.
Well, I'm looking forward to it too.